So I want to thank you for coming to Cedarville University to talk with Grace Norman, Cedarville's silver medalist. And I know Grace arrived early this morning, actually very late last night, early this morning. And so she's adjusting to the new time zone again. I want to thank you for being willing to share. And so we're going to begin with just an opening comment from Grace about her experience in Tokyo. And then we'll open up to the floor for questions. And Cameron Nelson will have the first question. Grace.
Well, thank you so much for having me and setting this up, and thank you all for being here. It's an honor to share my story and my experience in Tokyo. Tokyo was a phenomenal experience for me. 5 long years of hard work since the last one, and it was a little bit difficult, coming through COVID, and we weren't sure if it was going to happen or how the games were going to come through with all the different precautions with the pandemic and everything. But it way exceeded my expectations. Had a phenomenal race, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So thank you.
So Grace, tell me what this experience was like. I know this is 5 years in the making. I was talking to your mom about that. What were your emotions when you knew that, hey, you were going to be competing, and what were your thoughts leading up to competing in the triathlon?
Going into Tokyo this year, there's a lot of just, expectations, excitement, because it was, postponed an entire year. So it was there was just a lot of moving pieces. I was moving different places as far as where I was living, and but I was very focused on the goal, which was trying to defend my gold medal or medaling in Tokyo. And so finally getting there, seeing the course, there was so much excitement and so much love from back home that I was beyond excited. And it was everything I had hoped for.
Now, you won silver, right?
Correct.
Didn't win gold. How does that make you feel?
Obviously, in every race, winning is the goal, especially coming off of a gold medal in Rio. However, I took extensive care in just myself leading up into the race because I didn't want to put all that pressure on myself. I had done that the few months leading into Tokyo, and it was just, I couldn't handle it. It was too much, and it became more of a chore to train instead of being excited. So I took it as, this is an opportunity to see how fast I can go, and kind of laid the pressures of repeat gold aside. And then I believe by doing that, it made me just even more ecstatic to come across the line in second.
When you look back at how you performed and how well you did, what are some things you think you would have done different?
Looking back at my race, I was actually able to watch it. It was recorded, so I was able to watch it before I got on the plane to head back. And then I had, the entirety of 24 hours of travel to kind of think about it. And I normally give myself a 24-hour period to, think about it, look at it, see if there's things I would do differently. This race, however, it was one of my better races. It was a better performance for me. I have no regrets as far as the swim, bike, and run. I think I played the race very safe due to, or just safe for myself due to the heat measures there. It was very hot and humid during the race. And so I toyed with the idea during the race of going out a little harder in the run. But there was that potential of overheating, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, if I could solidify second and try for first, I didn't want to get passed by third. But overall, I'm extremely happy with how it went. I'm very proud of it and no regrets.
How'd you deal with the whole COVID situation that was going on?
There was a lot going on with COVID at the games. We were tested daily, so that was something we had to do. We had to report our health measures in an app every day. We were, had all those measures. As far as not having family, that was probably the hardest part, was just not having family and friends who had, been there in Rio, and I had so many people excited to come and cheer me on in Tokyo. So dealing with that was kind of sad. But the overall support that I got, all the pictures, all the letters and notes, was just a phenomenal touch when I got to the village. It, brought tears in my eyes. I put it all over my room. So it was really exciting. And so I think Japan did a wonderful job trying to mitigate all the COVID, exposures and close contacts. And I think they did a wonderful job keeping us all safe.
Were you guys like in a village where you really couldn't leave, or what was that?
Yeah, so the Paralympic Village was where most athletes were housed. So we had free reign within the village, and we were, had Team USA building, and then every other country had their buildings. We had dining halls. It was actually a pretty big village. You could do some running laps that would be like around a mile around, so you would have some freedom. But we really weren't allowed to do anything else outside of the village. We had strict transportation from the village to the venue, but there was no outside contact.
Having gone through that experience now, is there anything that you wish you would have known before you went?
I think I was able to take a lot of experience from Rio going into Tokyo, just because the Paralympic Games are unlike any other event. It's an event itself, you have so many different athletes from different countries and different sports, and we're all surrounding each other at all times. I think one thing that I would have remembered a little more is just the amount of walking that has to go into, walking. It's more like a college experience. And I've been removed from college, 2 years, and I've kind of removed myself from people a little bit more, and it was more like a culture shock of being back in college than anything else, of like in the dining hall, being surrounded by so many different athletes and trying to just focus on yourself instead of getting caught up in I don't know, I guess I was trying to see if I recognized anyone, but it just kind of took my focus a little bit during meals. But that was early in the week, and later in the week I was able to just, find my own space and be more calm and excited.
Let me pause here with the people in the room. Let me go to the people who are in Zoom. Do you have a question for Grace Norman?
Yeah, I do. This is Scott Ellis from the Gazette. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
How are you? Obviously,
good.
Pretty happy. So I have kind of just a couple quick questions regarding the run portion of the triathlon. And I'm not familiar with how it usually works at an Olympic Games, but is it always in laps where, you do the race where you got to do the 3 or 4 laps or whatever it is, or was just done in laps because of the setup? And if it's not normally done in laps, does that make it any different when you're running as opposed to doing a regular marathon, when you're just running a straight path as opposed to doing laps? Does that make any difference at all in how you run a race?
So the question was, does the race being in laps, does that affect anything in terms of her competition compared to a straightaway?
Yes, so most Paralympic races are in laps. They try and make it as spectator friendly as possible. So normally over a 5K, it'll be anywhere from 2 to 4 laps on the run, and bike as well. They try to keep it in laps. For me, I personally like laps because you have more opportunity to get feedback from your coaches on where other competitors are, and if there's a U-turn or something that you can glance over and see the other competitors, that is helpful for me because I can kind of gauge where I'm at. I know I use that a lot during the bike portion and the run portion. But yeah, I think as far as how I race, it's pretty similar. It is more familiar, whereas if you're just doing a 1-lap course, you're kind of always, you don't really know what to expect, but this was 4 laps on the same exact course, and I was able to expect water at the same places, and I knew the terrain very well.
And then one more quick question. Sorry, you had switched coaches, and you did a Zoom with your coach prior to heading out, and you thought that the coach switch was making a big difference for you. So now that everything is over, was the coach switch the right thing? How much did it help? And do you think you'd be sitting here with a silver medal without that change?
So the question is the impact of switching coaches.
I definitely am very happy with my decision to switch coaches. Greg Mueller is based out of South Bend, and I was able to go live there for the summer, close to him, and be able to have direct contact with him and his team. And it was just a phenomenal experience leading into this games. I kind of lost faith in my cycling leading up to the coach change. I had been beat multiple years by like minutes in the bike portion. And that just doesn't really make you feel super confident going into a Paralympic Games. And so to be able to have confidence restored back in me through multiple hours of hard work and just the determination that we both had, definitely my performance was coached by Greg Mueller extremely well. And I'm just extremely grateful that he had that much faith and dedication to me going into this games.
Talk a little bit about how you came in second.
As far as like my feelings towards it, or just the race itself?
Because the last part was the running part, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I obviously have a silver medal. Gold is the goal, but and that's how I started the race. I wanted to race this race without any regrets and put myself in the best position to be a gold medalist at the end of it. So for me, was going off in the swim extremely hard and trying to make as much of a gap as possible. I didn't know that was possible until I was about halfway through the swim and noticed, oh, okay, I'm a little bit ahead, which was super exciting and kind of gave me a little more fire. And I knew that there were strong cyclists in the field. And my cycling had come a long way, but there are still stronger cyclists. And so I knew I was just going to have to just hold them off as long as possible. And so that's what my goal was. Had a really strong bike, did get overtaken in the bike portion, and I felt comfortable with it. I was overtaken by one woman from Great Britain, Lauren Steadman, and I expected that. And in the past, she hasn't been a very strong runner, and so I felt pretty confident that if I ran what I was capable of, I could take her back. However, she just had a phenomenal run that day. And during the run portion, I was running pretty much the best of my ability and was not really making up any ground. And I could see that over the 4 laps. And it was a little bit disappointing, but I knew I had enough time on bronze that I could really put a hard effort in to see if I could make any ground, and I wasn't on the 3rd and 4th laps, and then was able to just settle with it on the last half of the last lap, and then just be extremely excited coming down the finish line.
What was the time difference between first, second, third?
First and second, I believe, was 40 seconds, and second and third.
I don't know about second, third, but first to third was 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, so it was probably just over 2 minutes.
Over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So Grace, what's next for you? Are you training for the upcoming Olympics? What's next?
So what's next for me? Hopefully I'll get on the time schedule a little bit quicker. But as far as racing, I have Collegiate Club Nationals for Cedarville University in, I guess, 3 weeks, of September 25th in Malibu, California. They're letting 2020 grads compete, so I was just excited to kind of end my season with one more race for Cedarville University, as a lot of that was taken from me my senior year because of COVID. I believe I will be doing World Championships. They are rescheduling for November in Abu Dhabi, so I will be doing that. But as far as training, a lot of it is just listening to my body, getting back on the time schedule, not stressing over every little detail as I was pre-Paralympic Games. But Paris 2024 is definitely on the horizon. I'm going to take a nice little break mentally and physically, but definitely excited to get back on the saddle and gain momentum towards that Games.
Get you to hold the medal up.
Yeah, of course. Do you want me to wear it? Or do you want me? I feel like it'd be low. Just hold it.
While you're doing that, you can still look at them.
Do you want me
So
to hold this down?
you still want it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, just hold it up.
Okay.
Yeah, keep holding it.
while I talk, or oh, you're getting the phone?
I'll just wait. Everyone likes medals. Good?
Yeah.
So Grace, you alluded to it, I'll step in here, that you saw halfway through the final lap that you were going to finish second. That was the goal at that point, and you were going to finish second. So that changed your mindset. But what people here in the States have noticed is when you came across the finish line, great smile, a great sportsmanship when you sat down next to Lauren. Why was that important for you? You can talk to them.
For me, sportsmanship is the whole goal of the game. If you're not including other athletes and using their energy, then what's the point of sport? You know, they're obviously in improving yourself, but especially at a big event like the Paralympics. And with Lauren Steadman, we've raced for the past 8 years. And so we've become really good friends actually especially through COVID. We were doing baking competitions when we couldn't race each other. And so to be able to switch places, obviously, you know, gold was the goal, but to switch places and both share that title of Paralympic champion, me in 2016, her in 2021, was just phenomenal. I was just really surprised by how she ran. And so I crossed and I was like, wow, what a race. And it was just exciting to just celebrate the amazing accomplishment that she'd just done. And so I was just very, very happy to, you know, cross, say congratulations. And it was also special because no one saw this, but before the race, she personally came out to me and was just saying, you know, good luck. Like, I wish you the best. And we're going to have some fun out there. You know, we've been through it all together. We've raced 8 years together. We're now at another Paralympics, and let's just go have fun and we'll see each other finish. And it just like really broke a lot of the tension and was a phenomenal display of sportsmanship on her part. So to return that favor at the finish line, it was just all I could do.
We have a question from the Rochester newspaper.
Hi, this is Patrick Murphy with the Rochester Sentinel. So my question is, what does this finishing, you know, medaling mean to your dad's hometown of Rochester, where, you know, your aunts and grandfather still live?
The question is, what does medaling mean to Grace and her dad's hometown and where her grandfather lives?
I'm very excited. It was a really big bummer that none of them could be with me in Tokyo. And I think that's the main point, that it means a lot to me for them because they weren't allowed to be in Tokyo. And so in order to just share that with them, and it's just more of a thank you. It was actually really neat because I lived in South Bend this summer. I was able to see my grandpa and my aunts and uncles a lot more than I have, especially coming off the pandemic. I wasn't able to see many people. And so to be able to win that silver medal and just bring it all back together, because family is so important to me. And so to have, knowing that they were watching and they were just supporting me was really special.
When you look back at the timing of your wins, how does that compare to your training times?
Could you repeat the question?
When you look at your timing.
Oh, like the times?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you exceed those times of training, or how did you place there?
Okay. Each race is different as far as like the distances could be slightly off. They can be just a lot different. But this race, however, was an exceptional race for me. The swim was one of my fastest swims across the board. And with biking, that was by far my fastest cycling time. Even though I got overtaken during it, I was phenomenal. It was just exciting to see my growth in that. Because just to put in perspective, I don't know what 2016 times were, but 18, 19, and 2020, I was getting beat by around 3 minutes, and I was cycling probably closer to 36 minutes, 35 minutes instead of 32 minutes. So it was much, much better. The run is hit or miss as far as like the course, I think, was a little long in this race, but it was still a solid course for me. great run, and it was good to be able to kind of reach back into my roots of running for Cedarville University and kind of use that as far as like experience and everything.
So I was going to ask, in the past when the United States hosted the games, other countries complain about the meals being insufficient. How did you feel the meals were? Were they nutrition or were they healthy on your end?
I thought the food in Japan was amazing. They had a big dining hall. They kept it very, we had hand washing measures. Everyone had to wash hands. Everyone had to wear gloves going into the dining hall, masks. And then each seat was individually tapered off by a plastic barrier. So that way you would not be able to, I mean, it made talking nearly impossible, especially with the mask. You had to basically scream in order for someone to hear you. But that was amazing measures against COVID-19. But the food I thought was very good. There was several different stations. My favorite was breakfast food, but it was very good. I don't have any complaints as far as the amount. It was just like basically like a college cafeteria, and you were able to see all the different athletes. And the food was delicious.
What kind of things they serve?
There were some from all different countries. You could find, there was like original Japanese cuisine. There was different like religious preferences if you needed kosher things. There was just like plain, there's pizza, pasta. So you kind of could get anything you needed as different athletes from different countries.
What's one thing that you would say helped you get through mentally? Because you had the pressure from the races, you had COVID, your family couldn't be there. So what's one or two things that helped you get through all of that?
It was definitely a very stressful week. I'll say that. There's, you arrive at the village, it's super exciting. But there's this, kind of looming pressure of the race. So for me, there was just, constant communication with my coach back home, as far as just, daily checking in that we were ready for this. We were prepared and excited. Another thing was getting there and reading all the notes that everyone had sent. It was just amazing to see all of the support from people I didn't even know. Like there were people who you haven't met me, but we're cheering for you. And I was like, wow. It was just an overwhelming response of just excitement and love from back home. And that, I taped up notes on my wall, and at night, whenever I would feel nervous, I would reread, and it was just calming. I also was able to talk to my family a lot and my boyfriend and be able to get just love from back home whenever they weren't there. And my relationship with Christ really helps as well. I have really dug into what it means to be a child of God, and this past few months leading into this have been really, really difficult. But he really gave me the strength to get through, especially there were some difficulties right before the race as far as where I was going to be living and staying, had to move situations. But just the peace I felt going into that race was nothing short of God's grace.
Can I ask a question? So you talk about the people back home supporting you, and that's probably because of your mom. But there was also a family from Japan that they were going to stay with that supported you. Talk about that situation and how that made you feel. Yeah,
so my family was going to stay with a family in Japan through Airbnb whenever they were staying in Japan supporting me. And so they had kind of learned about who I was and what day I was racing. And then whenever they had to cancel their plans, the family still decided they were going to come out and support me. And I didn't really know they were going to do that. I heard bits and pieces of that through our family text chain. I had never met the family. I still have not met the family, but I was racing and there was an overwhelming response of "Go Grace, go Grace" from Japanese people that I had never even seen, I've never even met. And they had signs that said "Go Grace" and Norman family. And it didn't occur to me who they were until after the race I received a picture from one of my teammates that they were like, "Man, you've got fans all over the world." And it was that family. And I sent it back home. They're like, "No, that's the people we were going to stay with." And so that they came out and supported me and I guess gathered everyone else on the streets it was really, really cool and neat that they would take the time out to support me and Paralympic movement.
Any other questions for Grace? Scott.
The Olympics this year seem to have a lot talk about mental health. Can you talk about that and how your faith helped with that?
Yeah, there was a big emphasis on mental health this year, which I was really glad to see. As athletes, there can be a lot of pressures, and if you don't take care of your mind and your body, it can have negative effects. It's really difficult, especially in COVID when a lot of us are isolated. It's really difficult to have a positive mentality and not let the pressures get to you. That was one of my goals going into Tokyo, was not let myself put a bunch of pressure on, because that's not what people back home are doing. That's not what the world wants. You know, they're excited that you're here and being able to compete for the United States. And so that was part of my prayers going into the race, was not letting the pressures of myself, but honestly just giving the race over to God and being happy with whatever his plan. I knew he had a plan, and I was going to do everything I could to make sure that I didn't get in the way of his plan. So that meant racing the hardest I could and being prepared as I could. Ultimately, that piece came into the point, and a strong mental health and strong mental game going into the race, because I had God on my side and I knew that he wasn't going to let me down.